first of all, just excuse if any cats roam around. It's like 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night here, and it's like cat time, and they're everywhere. And I'm sorry, I accidentally wrote cat's bum in the speech bubbles to everyone. I thought that was just a Lara. Sorry. So I had my whole 15-minute COVIDx speech written out, and it was going to be about imposter syndrome. And I'd spent weeks putting it together, and I had it really focused, and I thought that I'd be fantastic at this because I am the queen of feeling like a fraud. So I thought I'd nail it. So I wrote the presentation, and then I read the presentation, and then I deleted the presentation because I thought, I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychologist. Who am I to talk about imposter syndrome? I'm just an artist. I'm certainly not a motivational speaker, and my last talk sounded exactly like a motivational talk. It sounded like a night commercial for the uncertain artist. Feel like a fake and just do it anyway. So to try to counteract my feelings of uncertainty and my very clear imposter affliction, I researched, and I hate research. Anyone that knows me, I hate research. So in between this research were a whole bunch of tantrums, phone calls to my parents, whinging to them that I'm not an academic, and that as soon as this COVIDx talk goes out and hits the internet, everyone is going to realize that I am uneducated and a bit of a dope. So I put my hand up for this. I do not let people down, especially Kat. So I'm in the deep end, and this is me flailing like a crazy person with imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, we should actually call it, it shouldn't really be called a syndrome because that implies that it's something that a human is inflicted with. But in reality, imposter syndrome comes from societal beliefs or imposter experience or imposter phenomenon. So it's societal beliefs that you should be this way. Deep down inside you, you know you're not. You feel like a fake and you feel like a fraud. These beliefs could come from your parents and your upbringing. They could have come from your community, from your church group, from your sporting team, your guidance counselor. Wherever these structured beliefs have come from, they're ingrained in you that this is what you should be like. This is what you should do. This is how you should act. This is what you should dress like. And when you're not any or all of these, you feel like a fraud, like someone's going to find out and everything will come crashing down. Much like in my 30s, where all of my friends were off getting married, having kids, which was the societal expectation, and I was rolling around a derby track getting the snot knocked out of me. So by not meeting these societal expectations, I felt like a fake adult. I didn't think I was adulting properly. So my talk today is not on a motivational talk on how to deal with imposter experience. My talk is about my life as feeling like an imposter. How I create art, design, be a mum, teach, play roller derby. The many times I've faked it and bullshitted my way through and come out the other end to laugh about it with you now. I plan to normalize imposter syndrome because it is normal. It's been estimated nearly 70% of individuals will experience signs and symptoms of imposter phenomenon at least once in their life. And see, my research has paid off. The first time I heard about imposter syndrome was when my dad came to visit me when I was living in China, and I asked him how he was feeling about his impending retirement. And he said that he just wanted to make it to the end of his career without anyone finding out he was a fake. Now, my dad was a medical scientist with a university degree and a doctorate. He was the president of the Epstein-Barr virus group. He was the head of his lab for decades and received grant after grant, and he thought he was a fake. This is the first time I'd heard anyone talk about their feelings like that. It's really common for high-achieving humans, particularly women and those from ethnic and or low socioeconomic backgrounds, to experience imposter syndrome. No matter the level of success, the number of accolades, the way they feel, they don't feel like they deserve the kudos. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a high-achieving human, but I do deal with imposter syndrome. And the main reason my talk is about it is not because I like to dress up as Super Sarah every Halloween with my undies on the outside and fake it till I make it. It's because research has shown that the best way to combat imposter syndrome is to talk about it. When people with imposter phenomenon get positive feedback, awards, or promotions, it doesn't necessarily decrease their fraudulent feelings. But if a mentor or colleague talks about their insecurities and their imposter phenomenon, the realization that other people feel this way, even successful and talented people, can be a relief. Sorry, the washing machine's just finished. Anyway, so here we go. Every project I take on seems to be bigger than the next one. And it's not until I'm knee deep in the project that my imposter syndrome really kicks in, and I cry and I panic and I don't sleep and I do too much research and I do too much planning and too much list writing. For example, I've wanted to work for Queensland Rail for years and years and years. They have great walls, they pay really well. It's a great company to work for. So bring it on, right? And they contacted me to run a few stencil workshops with some local lovely ladies and to paint alongside them 18 meter long walls. So I said, sure, I can do that. But it was not until I was on site with the QR representative that I looked at the very long walls, and when she started asking me questions about writing a safety work method statement and remembered to bring a spill kit and what brand spray gun was I using and did I have safety sheets for the paint, and that's when the imposter syndrome hit me. I didn't know the answers to all of these, and I didn't know how to find out the answers. So I did what I usually do, and I planned and I researched. I asked a lot of my friends who had worked for QR before, and they were really, really helpful. So I did everything I could, including filling a bucket full of sand from my friend's kids' sand pit at 8 p.m. the night before the job to be my spill kit. And as you can see, we ended up doing the job. It got done. There were hurdles. I did cry. Not too many people saw it, but the client was happy. Moving on to another project, and yet another imposter syndrome experience. The Landscape Festival in Goondiwindi, which is in outback Queensland, Australia. Myself and a friend of mine who lives locally, Kate Owen, amazing, look her up. We put together a collaborative piece to paint this mural, and it got accepted. And this was all fine. That was okay when we're working on the computer. Did all the stencils, and then I headed out to Goondiwindi. And it's not until I actually got there and physically saw the wall in front of me that I realized that I had dug myself too deep and I was not good enough for this, and everyone was going to find out it was a fake and everyone was going to find out it was a fraud. And to top it off, totally wild, the Australian television program had contacted me and asked me if they could come out and film. So not only was everyone going to find out it was a fraud, but it was going to be broadcast across Australia to all the children to see. So I ended up cutting the stencils. I ended up working really closely with Kate, and it ended up being okay. There weren't too many tears, and it definitely didn't get caught on camera. But out of all the kudos, out of all the really lovely things that people said, out of the great festival and everything running so smoothly, the one thing that sticks in my mind is when we were putting up that stencil in the end, and this random fella walked past and yelled out, wait, I've got it written down here, "Cheater, why don't you paint it freehand?" And that's what I remember. And the worst thing is that I don't think I could. I don't think I could paint that freehand, and that's my biggest fear, that people will find out. So this is the last project I'm going to show you, and this is a microgalleries project. So a couple of years ago, we were really fortunate to bring over 3 Indonesian female street artists. And along with myself and a handful of other Brisbane female street artists, we spent the day talking about what it meant to be a female working in the industry that we were. And we collaborated together, and we were to put together a mural collaboratively on the back wall of this gallery. Now, this is one job that I feel quite ashamed of, because I let the imposter syndrome get the better of me, and I didn't think I was enough to paint. And so I touched a paintbrush once and I contributed some orange splashes. And to me, that's what stuck in my head. But in reality, it was a really good opportunity for me to step into a different role as an artist, where I knew every single artist's style that was there, and I got into more of a directing role. And I think the girls did a great job. So you can see like the really, really subtle splashes of orange that anyone could have done. But my takeaway from it is that it shifted my career into a different direction. But I did get taken over by the imposter syndrome, and it controlled me a little bit more than I would have liked for that project. It is my ultimate fear that people will find out that I'm not a great artist, that everyone can do what I do. And let's face it, I just splash some pretty colors on some canvas and stencil straight over the top. But somehow I managed to work full time for myself, running workshops, painting murals, selling canvases, traveling overseas, and giving talks. Feeling like a fraud is an ongoing battle, but knowing I'm not the only one makes it a bit easier to deal with. If you dismiss positive feedback, if you think everyone else can do what you do, think the way you think, create the way you create, if you feel like a fake and you worry you'll be found out, breathe, because you're not alone. Keep saying yes to the projects. Talk about your imposter experience. Pick up the paintbrush and bullshit your way through it, because that's what we're all doing.